Ba-dum. Rum bum 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 ba-dum bum 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 ba-da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum ba-ba-dum. Hello, my friends. Monday night. This is where we're supposed to be. Monday nights. Every Monday night is Monday night with you, my friends, and with those around who are interested in learning and studying homeopathy. It is a great privilege of mine to be here with you, to be the one to teach you this. I look forward to this every Monday night. And, you know, I've been doing this, I think we figured it was, 23, 22 years every Monday. I've never missed a single event except for when we've had technical problems. And so, my friends, it's so great to see you all. I love that you're here. My name is Joette Calabrese, and I'm here to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to teach you homeopathy and for you to learn as much as you possibly can. So for those of you who are new, welcome. And for those of you who have been around forever, my dear friends, I thank you for joining me again. Tonight, let's talk about strep throat. First, I have to tell you something kind of fun is that when I first learned about homeopathy in the very, very beginning, back in the 80s, I knew that homeopathy could help with, say, an ear infection or something like that. Maybe, conjunctivitis. But it never occurred to me that it could treat or replace an antibiotic for strep throat. And I said, wait, what? You can use homeopathy instead of an antibiotic for strep throat? Now, I had strep throat a number of times, not years worth, but a number of times that I can recall when I was a child. And I assumed that there was a possibility that my children, too, were going to suffer from this malady. And so I was really excited when I learned this. Then I also learned at the same time, again, back in the 80s, that the best medicine for strep throat that was most commonly used, it doesn't mean there aren't others that can act, but the one that is most commonly used is belladonna. Beautiful lady, Badana. Yes. Well, I'm going to say hi to some friends because everyone's now chiming in, and it's great to see you all. Hi, Judy from Ajax, Ontario, and Joanne from Texas. And hi, Alice. Well, I was just up in Toronto. I'm going to tell a little story about Toronto in a minute. Great to see you all. Blessings from Yorktown, Virginia. Yes, hello from Florida. Hi, Esther. Volume is a tad weak. Now that helps, doesn't it? Doesn't that not make a big difference so that you can hear me better? Good. I'm told that there's something about this microphone. It's not picking up as it should. Howdy, Neely. She says, howdy, teach. I love it every week. It's so great to see her. It's so great to see all of you, my friends. So belladonna. I thought that was so fascinating because I was trained from the very beginning that you must find a remedy that is specific to the person. It is the simillimum for the person, not for the condition. And when I heard belladonna for strep throat, I thought, wait a minute, isn't that a condition? Aren't we treating someone with a specific condition, with a specific medicine that would be used for many people, perhaps even most people who have a strep throat? You bet. That's the way I was trained, and that's the way many of you have been trained, to believe that there's one medicine for each person, and they vary greatly between person to person, and that you cannot treat based on a condition, but that is absolutely false. And I'm going to tell you how that works tonight. But let me also tell you my little Toronto story. Perry and I were just in Toronto. I just got back actually this morning. We were there for the weekend. It was our Christmas present to each other. And while we were standing there in the cold, waiting for our Uber, I guess we were kind of downtown Toronto, a couple walked by us, and they were walking rather slowly, and they were maybe mine, Perry's age. And I heard him say, I feel really run down. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I said, oscillococcinum or oscillococcinum. And I happen to have it right here so that you know what I'm talking about. Oscillococcinum. It's pronounced both ways. I didn't have the box with me, but he said, what? I said, okay, look, it's a homeopathic medicine. You can get it on Amazon, or you can just go to your local grocery store. Many of the grocery stores in Toronto carry it, and some of the alternative health food stores and grocery stores, and just buy Oscillo. Remember, there's a lot more to that word. Just remember Oscillo, and take it right away. Take it every few hours. He said, what are you talking about? I said, because I heard you say that you feel run down. He says, I do feel run down. So I don't know that he actually did it, but it is very hard, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way. When someone reports that they are not feeling well, and you know exactly what would be useful for them. Because oscillococcinum is a medicine that can be used for most people when they're feeling as though they're just coming, especially in the beginning, when they're just coming down with it, it can be very useful. Now, that's not what I'd planned to tell you about tonight. It's a wonder you didn't think I was a slubberdagullion or something, because who the heck was this woman telling him that he should be taking this strange-sounding medicine? But I was not a slubberdagullion. I was trying to be of help. So let's start with belladonna, shall we? Let's talk about that. So belladonna often is accompanied by a fever. Now, children who get strep throats are more likely to get a fever that's high. Adults don't generally get high fevers. It's children who mount good high fevers, which we actually encourage. We want a good high fever because that's what's going to cook it off. It's going to bake it off. That's how the body gets rid of it. So we don't want to suppress it with synthetic drugs of commerce. I use that phrase frequently, and I don't know where I got it from. Some homeopath came up with it. And if I could ever find out who it was, I would like to give them credit, because I use it on a regular basis. It's such a great description. Synthetic drugs of commerce. So let me say that it is when a child gets a fever, they're more likely to get a good high one, 105 and a half even. No worries, my friends. No worries, my friends. Now, we do use homeopathy, and I had a young client ask me today, wait a minute, I am feeling better with these medicines. So that he had a chronic GERD and other gastrointestinal conditions. And he said, I am better, but is this homeopathic? Now, these remedies that I'm taking, I'm giving him 3, I think. Are these keeping this at bay, and then once I stop, it'll just come back again? No, said I. No, this will help to kind of change the ground upon which the seed is growing, and it will rearrange things so that soon it will become your immune system, your ability, I don't know if I'd use immune system, but your ability to withstand eating red sauce with meat will be much elevated. And so that will come from using the medicines. So that's the same thing when we're using these medicines, not just for a chronic condition such as this young man's situation, but also for acute situations. And so we are looking to belladonna first, especially for tonsillitis. Now, many people don't have their tonsils, and I've written about it. I've said, I want my money back, and I want my tonsils back, because I really would like to have those organ parts put back in my body. It's not going to happen. And the doctor who took my tonsils when I was 3 years old is, of course, long gone. And the money was long ago spent. I'd also like the dentist, or actually was the dental surgeon who extracted my wisdom teeth. I'd like those parts back as well. Thankfully, those are the only 2 parts of my body that have been taken from me. The first one, I had no choice. The second one, I did have a choice. It was a foolish decision on my part. I digress. Let's get back to belladonna and how we know when we should be using belladonna and how frequently it's used. It's used, well, first of all, let me tell you that I often, when my children would get a strep throat, which didn't happen very often, and I'll tell you why. They didn't get it frequently because I use belladonna. So when I use belladonna, the next opportunity for strep throat to present just petered out. It fizzled out. It was the end of it. Or when it came back so small, I did 1 dose, 2 doses of belladonna, and it was gone. Now, had I not done that, my husband was prone to strep throat when he was a child as well. And there'd be no reason to believe that our children would have been that much different. So I feel as though we really hit it, we got it right early on. So belladonna is often a remedy that we use for strep throat when it's someone who has a high fever, such as a child, and their eyes can look glassy. They can look as though they're in an other world, because the fever kind of does that sometimes to children. It gives them almost a delirium. They can be very hot. Yes, they can, but yet they can also be hot to your touch. You touch them and they feel very hot to your hand. But if it's you pull away, then your hand can actually still feel the warmth that was emanating from the child's forehead or face. And sometimes they can experience chills in spite of them being so hot, which of course makes sense, doesn't it? That's what we find a lot with these kinds of illnesses. There can be delirium. There can be delirium in nightmares, etc. And the throat is dry sometimes and scrapey, and the child, I'm still talking about a child who has strep throat, might have a strep smell to the breath. And a lot of times mothers know this. They've had enough children now, they've had enough experience that they know that the strep throat is forthcoming because they can smell it on their child's breath. They know that smell. That's an astute mother. It's not a mother with only one child who's never done this before, because she doesn't have that experience and she's still panicking. Strep means I have to go to the doctor. I've got to get antibiotics. No, my friends, it does not mean that. And so she knows that if there's a strange odor, or if the child is getting lethargic and the eyes are looking a little glassy and the child is feeling quite down and maybe the fever starts to climb, she looks in the child's throat and there you go, white patches, often on the back of the throat, sometimes on the tonsils if they still exist, if the mother was tenacious enough to stay with her gumption, stay with her beliefs and have gumption. So that's the way we look at it for a child, and it's a very common remedy for children. But it can also be used for adults, particularly when the throat is quite painful. Belladonna has a lot to do with heat, redness, and pain. So often we'll see an adult who has strep throat, and there's so much pain in the throat. It's really strong, and we have other medicines for that as well. But when it's very painful, and there's bright red, and there's a history even of strep throat, then that person might start off a strep throat with Belladonna 30. Now, how often? Well, if we were classical, we might say, oh, just once. I'm sorry. Okay. No, not just once. You're going to use it every 3 hours if it's pretty bad. If it's really horrendous, you might use it every 2 hours. Excuse me. And then open that up. Taper it off. Taper it until you see that, okay, now every 2 hours seems to be acting. The person's no longer suffering quite as much. Let's go to every 3 hours. Okay, now let's go to every 4 hours. Okay, now let's go to every 6 hours. And you could do this for a couple of days. It can take that long. It really can. Well, I know, but...
You stay cool.
Okay, but my concern is that they couldn't hear me so well, and I noticed that it makes a difference. I know. Better that you hear me than see me, right? All righty. Okay, so belladonna, we use it like that. And then after a while, perhaps the person is feeling so much better, they can use it perhaps only twice daily. Now let's go to another medicine that is also very useful for strep throat, and that is Phytolacca, Phytolacca, Phytolacca. Just the way it sounds, my friends. Just the way it sounds. So... and I often use this in the 30 or 200C. Now, why would we choose Phytolacca over belladonna? Well, Phytolacca has lymph node problems. The lymph nodes are tender or swollen or both. The tonsils are tender or swollen or both. And the pain is not quite as great. Perhaps the person's already been taking belladonna for a while, and now the pain has somewhat improved, and now they're noticing, though, that the lymph nodes are involved. That's when I would use Phytolacca. And how frequently might I use Phytolacca 30 or 200? Same thing. Every 3 hours, approximately, and as improvement ensues, then we open it up. And that really does matter, my friends. You want to always be looking for that tipping point. All right. Now, the next one, which I think is really a great one, but these are all great, is Hepper sulf. Hepar sulfuricum calcarea. It's a combination medicine, indeed. Yes, it is. It's a combination medicine. Hepar sulf, but the full name is Hepar sulfuricum calcarea. And that is a feeling as though that's a very common remedy for sore throats in general. So if you're not sure if it's strep, there's no odor, there's nothing that's outstanding that makes you believe that it must be strep, then you might want to just start with Hepar sulfuricum calcarea, because you're looking for sensations that the person is describing, such as a pain, like a sticking pain in the throat, like a splinter is in the throat, or sometimes it feels as though there's a lump in the throat or something needs to be cleared from the throat, and the person is constantly trying to clear the throat, and there's a great amount of mucus. So I really like Hepar sulf, and I like that in a 30 as well, or 200, and I like that in the same fashion, every 3 hours, generally every 3 hours. As it improves, we go to every 4, every 6, every 12 hours. 12 hours is too far apart. Okay, back to every 6 hours. So that's what I want you to find, is that tipping point, okay? Next medicine. I have 2 more, and they're very closely related. One of them is Mercurious Soul. Mercurious, Mercurius, Mercurious Soul. Second word is soul, like the sun. Mercurious Soul. And I like to use this in a 200C. I've always used it in 200C, just inevitably. It's strange that I've always used it in a 200C. And then the Banerjees, indeed, they use it in a 200C. And long before I met the Banerjees, that's the potency I always like to use. Don't ask me how I knew that. Perhaps I learned it from someone else. Perhaps I learned it through experience, or testing it out on my family, and then noting that it worked, and then using it, suggesting it for my clients, etc. So Mercurious Soul. Now, Mercurious Soul is this one is more specific. There often is an odor to the breath. There's halitosis. It's more, although there's a strep odor for all of these that can indicate the need for belladonna. But when it comes to Mercurious Soul, it's more like a halitosis rather than from the throat. And there's excessive saliva. So the sufferer is laying in bed, and their saliva may be draining from the mouth. When they get up after sleeping, they might find the pillow is wet. They might find that they have to constantly be kind of drawing in the saliva that's almost an obstacle to their speech. And so they have to keep drawing it in. So that's a call for Mercurious Soul. It also is, if there's any indication that this person has any dental conditions going on, such as, swollen pockets, and perhaps there had been infections and that kind of thing. And so, by the way, Hepar sulf can also fit that picture as well. But Mercurious Soul is so specific to dental conditions. It's such a great medicine. But it is also, we use this not at the very onset. I would start with something like belladonna first, but Mercurious Soul is after the strep throat has been ripened for a while. It's been going on for some time. What's some time? Not a day, not 2, not 3, 5, 6 days into the strep throat. Then you might find that Mercurious Soul is really the best answer. Now, that brings me to something else that I want you, and I've been trying to get this message out there as best I can. I want you to think, my friends, not in terms of, oh my gosh, I got to do something right now because I know what medicine it is and I can do it and I have to do it because I can't be sick. Do you realize what time it is? I've got to get back to work. I got to do this. I got to do that. I want you to think more in terms of, if you don't feel well, rest. Drink bone stock, some chicken soup, water with salt in it. Sleep during the day. People report to me they can't sleep at night. Okay, then that means you sleep during the day if you're sick. And I also want you to take it easy and not worry about it. It's very unlikely that people die from strep throat. From complications, you can die from anything. Let's start with that. You can die from the common cold. You can die by just getting into your automobile. But I want you to remember that as humans, we're supposed to get sick and get past it and get on the other side of it. It's a sense of accomplishment getting to the other side of it. I know it's an inconvenience, but change your thinking. Adjust your thinking just a little bit so that you're not fighting it so hard. Do what makes sense, be logical, be prudent, but don't fight it. And don't say, oh my gosh, I've been sick for a week. Yes. Perfectly normal to get sick for a week like this kind of an illness. 2 weeks, even 3 weeks. Yes, take it easy, my friends. Just know that life is meant to be met with challenges. And this is one of the challenges that humans must go through. It doesn't mean we have to go through it all the time. We should be able to handle this so that it's not constant. Now, if it's constant that the person is getting sick like this, then now we're going to think about it a little differently. Okay. Veronica says, last March I had it and heaped myself 200C, solved it in 4 days. Doctor prescribed 2 types of antibiotics. I put them in the trash. Veronica, beautiful. Good evening from Connecticut. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to ask you, friends, please share this. Please subscribe, share this. That's how we're going to get this information to families. Yeah. Alice says, I'm glad I'm not the only one who butts into people's lives offering homeopathic solutions. And we can't help ourselves. It's so obvious. We know what people ought to know about. I've learned so much from you, says Kieran. Thank you for introducing homeopathy to me. Blessings and hugs. Thank you very much for saying. Kathy says, homeopathy has been curing all things strep and staph in our family for over 30 years and works faster and deeper than antibiotics. Absolutely. And then there are no side effects. I got somebody crawling down on the floor next to me. Hi, Perry. If I had known back then, I think none of my children would have had ear infections and my son would still have his tonsils. It's true, Alice. I know. I got reprimanded in the ED after a febrile seizure in 2003 for using Belladonna for high fever. Yeah, you see, here's the thing. If you tell a doctor that you use Belladonna, what you're saying to that doctor is, I don't trust you, doc. I don't like what you're going to give me. So I made a decision, an executive decision, and went past you and decided to use something that you know nothing about. And I'm going to show you how little you know about it because you think Belladonna is dangerous. We know that when Belladonna is potentized into homeopathic medicine, allowed by the FDA, that is a great medicine. If you do that, if you say that, and you don't have to actually say those words verbatim, you're saying it in a way that leads them to believe that's what you're thinking. You cannot do that to another person and expect them to want to help you. So when you go to the hospital and tell them, well, I just gave my child raw milk, then they freak because they know nothing about raw milk. If you go to the hospital and tell them you used arnica, they're going to go, oh, arnica, Montana, oh my gosh, that's dangerous. Well, in gross form it might be. So if you're going to the hospital, if you're going to a doctor and you're going there because you're getting their opinion, just get their opinion and thank them for it. This is not your opportunity to teach doctors. Let them learn that on their own. Or if you've got a doctor that you really click with and you have an opportunity to talk about, okay, all right, I get it. But that's not the arena, my friends. On the street of Toronto is the arena. Not in an emergency room. Listen, I'm not slapping the back of your hand because, Alice, I learned that the hard way myself. I had a very hard time when my father would go to the hospital. I would be so disgusted with the suggestions that the cardiologist came up with that I could barely contain myself. And I learned after a while, you get used to it. And you learn that you really just give me the information. Be quiet, Joette. Learn the information. This is what we're there for. Okay. Yep. Can you please recommend a remedy for dizziness? She is 93. Okay. I just did. Look at last night's blog. Read my blog. Joette Calabrese. What was it called? Cyber tinnitus or maybe cyber something. Just look at my blog from last night. It's exactly the conversation what I wrote about last night. My brother is deaf because his fever was too high for too long when he was 5 months old. High fever in kids is not always good. I'm going to tell you, Sherry, I disagree with you. I want to know what the treatment was. How was he treated? What was he given? High fever for too long was it just a high fever? Or did they give him antibiotics and steroids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So it seems like, I was never well since pneumonia. It must be pneumonia is really bad for me. Or was it, I was never well since I was treated with antibiotics and steroids for pneumonia. Yes, it's true. Now, I will also tell you that the American Academy of Pediatrics has finally decided that, yes, indeed, a good high fever is not a bad thing in a child. The danger of a high fever in a child is not the height of the fever, it's dehydration. So, replying to Angela, okay, people are helping each other. Spelling, okay, have you ever seen strep seems to follow COVID? Since COVID, the regular strep remedies don't seem to work. I've got to tell you, COVID, what the heck is COVID? It's a cold. I mean, I hope that you're not getting having that Q-tip that's not cotton at the end. It's got stuff on the end. I hope that you're not sticking that up there and saying, oh, yeah, here it's COVID. I hope people are not doing that. Dangerous stuff. So it's a cold. Do you see that strep throat follows a cold would be the question. Yes, I have seen that. Yes. Replying to Eileen, okay, you're helping each other. Meet herself. Okay, let's see. Now I've got one more medicine I want to talk about here, and that is Mercurious cyanotus. Mercurious, Mercurius, cyanotus. Cyanatus. And this is and the Banerjees taught me to use this specifically combined with Belladonna 3C. Now, until I met the Banerjees 12 years ago, I used Mercurious cyanotus a few times, but mostly I use Mercurious Soul. But Mercurious cyanotus is when there is pus. It's very clear that the throat is infected with pus, and on the tonsils or the throat or both. And so that can be very valuable to know this medicine. How often are we going to use this? In the same fashion that I taught you everything so far tonight. Every 3 hours approximately, back off as you see a little improvement. Then maybe every 6 hours you see a little improvement. Okay, now maybe 8 hours, 12, et cetera, okay? And Mercurious Soul and Mercurious cyanotus are very, very similar medicines. It's just that with the cyanotus, it's more likely to present with white matter on the throat. And there can be white patches. It can be ulcerations even, like an ulcer. And often the tongue can be coated white. So that's going to give you your indication. Boy, we're running out, aren't we? It's already 20 minutes after. Excuse me. Yes, I'm going to go to my mighties. Yes, so I'm going to say goodbye, and I just have to say that I'm wearing my pin. Where's my pin here? For Ambassador Initiative. I did this for Michelle. So Michelle, if you're here, that's why I'm wearing it. Someday I'll be talking about that more clearly. All right, my friends, I'm going to go to my mighties, and I'm going to say goodnight to all my friends on the internet. God bless you all. Mwah. See you next week. Bye. All right, now we're going to just